Good evening. We shall begin with the semiconductors. In the morning, we have seen that semiconductors are broadly classified into two types or two classes, where we have classified the semiconductors as intrinsic semiconductors and extrinsic semiconductors. Under extrinsic type of semiconductors, we have seen that when a pentavalent impurity that is added to silicon crystal, then 5 out of 5 electrons from the pentavalent impurity, they form normal covalent bonds with silicon. In the formation of 4 bonds with silicon, 4 electrons out of 5 electrons are used up and 1 electron that is left. This electron is known as a free electron or mobile electron. So this electron that we have shown only 2 electrons, but number of electrons are there, mobile electrons are there. These electrons can form an electron donor band that is known as EDB, near conduction band. As we know that there are two bands, one is a valence band, second is a conduction band. Valence band is occupied or filled band, while conduction band is empty or vacant band. So this electron donor band that forms another energy level near conduction band. So the energy gap between conduction band and this electron donor band, that is very small. On account of this, on application of an electrical potential, the electrons from electron donor band, they can easily move to conduction band, which is empty. During this jumping or promotion of electrons, electrical conduction is carried out. As electrical conduction is carried out with the help of negatively charged particles, that is electrons. So letter N that is used as a from negatively charged electrons, that is small n, hence crystals carrying the electric current with the help of doped impurity of phosphorus containing 5 electrons, that is 5 valence electrons, and because of this current conduction is carried out. So all such crystals are known as the n-type semiconductors. With regard to band theory, if we try to explain the n-type semiconduction, then a very small energy band and energy gap is there between conduction band and the inner electron donor band that we have studied in the morning, where this band can promote easily the electrons from the electron donor band to conduction band, and hence the electrical conduction is carried out. So similarly, the second type under types of semiconductor, under extrinsic type of semiconductors, is a p-type semiconductors. Under p-type semiconductors, if silicon crystal, if it is doped with a trivalent impurity, then the trivalent impurity, I am going to show you the diagrammatic representation. The trivalent impurity means only 3 valence electrons are there. So these 3 valence electrons are contributed by the doped impurity, and hence there is one scarcity of 1 electron so as to form normal covalent bonds. If we want to see the diagrammatic representation, then I would like to show you the representation like this. I am going to show you the video of these n-type and p-type semiconductors, where you will see how the p-type and n-type semiconduction is carried out. Now, see here, p-type semiconductors. Now, in p-type semiconductors, a pure silicon crystal is taken. Say, for example, this is a part of crystal structure of silicon like this. This is a part of silicon crystal structure which is shown like this. And here, this is a intermediate bonding between all these silicon crystals. which can be shown like this. These extrinsic type of semiconductors are also known as a defective or impure semiconductors, because pure silicon, when it is doped with either a trivalent or a pentavalent impurity, then the impurity of such pure metal is decreased because of addition of the impurity. Now suppose if a trivalent impurity such as, which contains NS2 NP1, such as the, here I would like to give you one example of the boron or aluminium. These are the some examples where they can contribute only 3 electrons. For example, boron is having 3 valence electrons and aluminum is also 3 valence shell electrons. For example, having boron having electronic configuration 1s2 2s1, and aluminum is having 3s2 and 3p1. So in all, the 3 electrons are contributed, that is 3 valence electrons are there. Now suppose if we elaborate this particular diagram like this is silicon, 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 again silicon, and here if boron or aluminum, say for example I write aluminum, then this crystal is becomes impure like this. Now by adding a impurity, the conducting property of pure silicon can be improved or it can be enhanced. Now aluminum can contribute only 3 electrons. Say for example, here this aluminum, here first electron, the second electron and third electron of aluminum or barium, sorry, or boron. The fourth bond between silicon and boron, for which again requisition of electron is of 2 electrons, but silicon can contribute only 1 electron like this, but aluminum cannot contribute a single electron. So here the bonding between this aluminum and silicon, or if we want to show the bonding like this, 1 electron of aluminum, another electron of aluminum, third electron of aluminum, and surrounding this 4 silicon atoms are there like this. They also contribute their single electrons. This is third and fourth. But here no electrons are available for aluminum because aluminum can contribute only 3 electrons. So here this is the part of crystal structure doped with silicon with aluminum. So there are not enough electrons so as to form the bond. So this bond between aluminum and silicon is formed. Then second bond between aluminum and silicon is formed. The third bond is also formed. But for the formation of this bond, no enough electrons are available. Only silicon can contribute. So because the absence of one electron is there, which creates a hole or empty space, and this hole is regarded as a positive hole because no electrons are present. So under the influence of an electrical potential, this hole migrates towards the negative charge terminal, and electrons they migrate towards a positive charge terminal because electrons they move to the opposite pole. So in this case, if at all this hole is present or empty space is there, then on application of an electrical potential, some nearby electron, say for example, this silicon gives its electron to aluminum for the formation of this bond between aluminum and silicon, which creates again another new hole. To occupy this hole, some nearby silicon atom also contributes its electron, which creates another hole. So thus by migration of hole, the current conduction is carried out. So here hole is migrated and hole is regarded as a positive part, and hence here current conduction is carried out by positive particles, that is holes, and such crystals are known as a p-type semiconductors. With regard to band theory of metals, if we try to explain this particular fact, that is a p-type semiconduction, then one can show this as like this. This we know as a conduction band, which is empty. This is empty or vacant. This is known as the valence band, which is completely filled with electrons. So for this reason, we can show a dashed line. And here, a band of energy level. This is a band of energy level that is very small gap is there. This is known as a electron acceptor band, which is known as a EAB, electron acceptor band. So if we apply an electrical potential, then electrons from valence band can easily move to the electron acceptor band, and thus while moving, these electrons can carry the electrical potential or electric current, and hence they carry the current. So this is how current conduction is done in case of p-type semiconductors. If we see the energy gap between the conduction band and the valence band, this is very large, but the energy gap between the electron acceptor band and the valence band, that is very small. And because of this, on application of an electrical potential, the electrons from valence band can easily move to the electron acceptor band. Now, with regard to the graphical representation, if we want to show this situation, then we can show this as like this. Here, this is known as the density of states versus the energy of conduction band and the valence band. Here it is seen that this electron acceptor band, which is very close to valence band. So if we show that like this is known as a valence band, this is a conduction band. So a very small gap is there. This is known as a acceptor level. This is acceptor level where this acceptor level is very close to valence band, and because of this, the electrons can easily migrate from valence band to conduction band, and hence the current conduction is carried out. So this is how the p-type and n-type semiconductors work. Now, if we want to compare how to remember the p-type and n-type semiconductor and how they work, then we can briefly enlist certain points of interest amongst n-type and p-type semiconductor. We know in n-type of semiconductor, a pentavalent impurity that is added. For example, phosphorus containing NH2, NP3. Total number of valence electrons are 5. And just now here we have seen in p-type of semiconductor, a trivalent impurity having the configuration NH2, NP1, such as boron or aluminum may be added. Here, boron or aluminum may be added, which contributes in on 3 electrons, and here 5 electrons, that is valence electrons, are contributed. Secondly, in case of n-type semiconductor, only out of 5 electrons, valence electrons, only 4 electrons are contributed by phosphorus for the formation of bond between phosphorus and silicon. So 1 electron that is left extra. So charge carriers, the charge carriers are nothing but the electrons. But in case of p-type semiconductors, due to scarcity of electrons to form the normal bonds with silicon, only 3 electrons are contributed, so there is a scarcity, and hence the holes they migrate. So holes are nothing but the positive holes, hence are known as a p-type semiconductors. And here charge carriers are negatively charged electrons, hence it is an n-type semiconductor. Also, in case of n-type semiconductors, the electron donor band that is present near the conduction band, while in case of p-type semiconductors, the electron acceptor band that is present near the valence band. So this is main difference between These are two types. So once you remember all these parameters, then it is very easy. You should remember that the pentavalent impurity belongs to group 15 of the periodic table, while the trivalent impurity that belongs to group 13 of the periodic table. So if you remember all these parameters, then it is very easy to write the entire electronic configuration, entire explanation for all these two types. Now we shall move to the intrinsic type of semiconductors, where again a similar type of explanation is there. So intrinsic type of semiconductors, these are also known as pure semiconductors because there is no necessity to add certain impurity just to improve the current conduction. Here, if we see the diagrammatic representation of silicon material, which can be shown as like this, pure silicon material, this is another silicon, this is third silicon, and this is fourth silicon. So central place silicon is there, which is surrounded by surrounding four silicon atoms. So these silicon atoms are quadrivalent, that is, they are having a covalency of 4. So these silicon atoms, they contribute their valence electrons and they can form the bonds like this. This is silicon. They can form the bonds like this. So these bonds are formed by mutual sharing of electrons from this silicon and this silicon. So everywhere they contribute the 2 electrons. So normally at 0 degree centigrade, these material, pure silicon material, act as an insulator, or they act as a non-conducting material or non-conductors. Now, if at all the temperature of this silicon material or germanium, if it is increased, then this bond or this bond or this, either of this bond that gets broken. If the bond between successive silicon atoms is broken, then these electrons become free or the electrons become mobile. This is when the temperature of the crystal, if it is increased beyond room temperature, then one of the bond that is broken. Because bond is broken, the electrons are now mobile and they leave their original position and move inside the crystal, which creates a hole, that is the absence of electron. Now to occupy this hole, some nearby silicon, some nearby bond that also breaks and that contributes its electron to occupy this hole, that creates another vacancy for electron. To occupy this vacancy, some nearby bond that also breaks and that electron which is free that occupies this empty space, which creates another electron vacancy. So thus, when the bond that is broken, the electrons from such crystal, these electrons from such crystal, they are now quite mobile and they move freely and they occupy the empty sites. Thus, because of the movement of the silicon atoms that moves through the crystal, the movement of the electron creates a positive hole at the site of missing electron. The positive hole is vacant and hence electron present in the nearby covalent bond moves into this vacant position. Thus, fresh positive hole is created and under the influence of electric current, holes can migrate and the electrons are filled up by this electron. This conduction is carried out. This semiconducting action can be explained also on the basis of the band theory of metal. Now here, see, as we know there that there are two bands like this, and we know this is a conduction band, this is known as a valence band. In case of intrinsic type of semiconductor, the energy gap or forbidden energy band, which we call as FB, this forbidden energy band that is very, very small. That is the energy gap between the conduction band and the valence band, that is very, very small. So on application of an electrical potential, the nearby bond that breaks up and electrons can easily migrate from the valence band to conduction band. Thus, by migration of electrons from valence band to conduction band, current is carried out. So this is how it is known as the intrinsic type of semiconductor, where there is no necessity of addition of any impurity from outside. So this semiconduction action is known as an intrinsic semiconductor. Now, which are the applications of these semiconductors? So semiconductors, as we know, that can have acquired unique position in modern engineering and technology. Semiconductors have a limitless applications. Semiconductors are used for a number of purposes. They find applications in calculators, electronic watches, hearing aids that we are using for our mobiles, solar devices, computers, satellites, radio, TV sets, all these electronic equipments, they use these intrinsic semiconductors. There are certain additional applications of these semiconductors, as they are also used to control current intensity and voltage to the desired extent. Secondly, these semiconductors are also used to control or to convert the sound energy into electrical energy. They are also used to enhance the rate of chemical reactions during a chemical analysis. They are also find extensive applications in aeroplanes, supersonic devices also. Now, if we want to make the idea of semiconduction, how it is carried out and how N-type and C-type, P-type semiconductors they were, I would like to show you one video that will make all ideas very clear. Now, see this video. So this is how, by looking at all these two different types of videos, we can understand how the semiconducting action can be taking place in the silicon or germanium crystal. Now we shall move towards a very interesting part of this topic, is a ceramic superconductors. Now, under ceramic superconductors, we have to study the formation of a very well-known ceramic superconductor, which is known as a 123 superconductor. I will mention why it is 123 is depending upon the composition of constituent units in the crystal. We know that, say for example, this is a source of generation of electricity. Say for example, this is electricity that is generated at one end, and if this electricity now it is transmitted to the homes. During this transmission here, if we transfer 100% of electricity, then when the electricity travels through so many electrical poles and wires, then at homes only 80% electricity that reaches. If we see the percentage of electricity at the source and the percentage of electricity at the end, that is at the villages where homes are there are 20% losses are there. In order to avoid the loss of electricity during its transmission, certain materials those are used, those work or they can transmit the electricity without any loss. Those materials are known as superconductors. So superconductors are used to transmit or to transfer the electricity, huge electricity from one end to another end without any losses or without the loss of any energy. And this entire credit that goes to one scientist that is known as Kamerlingh, and he has discovered the phenomena of this superconductivity in the year 1911. So you should remember the name of this scientist. It is known as Kamerlingh in the year 1911, and he has given the phenomena of this superconduction. A superconductor has zero or almost zero electrical resistance. That means there is no resistance for the transmittance of this electricity from one end to another end. So it can therefore carry an electric current without losing any energy. So it was proved that mercury is a superconductor at below 4.2 Kelvin, and this phenomenon is known as superconductivity. So how the superconductors can be prepared? They can be prepared by using four different methods. The first method is known as sintering method. The second method, that is known as sputtering, or it is known as a chemical vapor deposition method, which is known as a CVD method. The third, that is known as the chemical deposition, because it is these superconductors are used in the form of a thin film. And fourth is a electro deposition. Fourth is known as a electro deposition. Amongst all these four different methods, the second method, that is sputtering or chemical vapor deposition method, is included in our syllabus. So I am not going to details of sintering method, chemical deposition and electro deposition methods. In the year 1987, a scientist, Chinese scientist Wu Shu, and his co-workers, they have found how a semiconductor can be prepared. For this method, they have used the setup for this is that they have taken three reactors. This is one, this is reactor number second, and this is reactor number third. They have prepared a semiconducting material is known as a YBA2, YBA2 Cu3O7 minus X. This is known as a ceramic superconductor. Yttrium is in the percentage 1, barium in the percentage 2, and copper in the percentage 3. Hence, all such superconducting materials are also known as a 1, 2, 3 superconductors. Now, to prepare these superconductors, Wushu and his co-workers, they have taken 3 reactors, and these reactors are kept inside a oven. This is known as a heated oven, where in the first reactor they have taken the oxide of copper, in the second they have taken the oxide of yttrium, and in the third they have taken barium in the form of oxide, and these are filled with oxide material like this. Here at the top of this there are 2 openings like this. This is first opening which to enter carrier gas inside this like this, which contains argon, oxygen, and moisture is taken. The another hole for every reactor is made like this, and all 3 gases are now passed through only one pipe. These are known as T1, T2, and T3, and they are taken in a reaction vessel. From this opening, exhaust gas that is emitted out. This is the opening. Here, a rectangular shaped part that is kept, over which the gases are trapped here. This is known as a reaction chamber or reaction vessel, and from the bottom of this reaction vessel, a infrared radiation is thrown on this wedge-shaped or rectangular shaped plate. This is general setup of this chemical vapor deposition. Now, how this works? Here, in electrical devices, superconductors are used in the form of thin films. So, thin films are used wherever the superconductors are used. For this purpose, the best suited method is a chemical vapor deposition. In this method, a volatile complexes of metal, copper, yttrium, and barium are held at temperatures T1, T2, and T3. The temperatures are controlled at T1, T2, and T3, which provides desired vapor pressure of each component. So if we maintain the temperature, then the vapor pressure of these gases which are coming out of these traps, that is also maintained. When the reaction conditions are properly maintained, then the gases in the reaction chambers are swept by using a carrier gas. That means carrier gas is admitted inside all these chambers through these pipes, and they are swept on this rectangular shape, wedge-shaped part. So this carrier gas is nothing but it contains argon, oxygen, and water vapor through the taps, which are shown here with the help of a diagram. Now, when the conditions, that is T1, T2, and T3, which are maintained, then YBA2 here, YBA2Cu3O7, this thin film is easily deposited, and this thin film which is moist, that thin film is dried with the help of a infrared radiation. So here, if at all our Zoom meeting that ends, you have to again click the same link and you have to rejoin because only few minutes are left. So here you have to again rejoin this Zoom meeting. When the conditions are properly maintained, the desired thin film that is deposited on this rectangular shaped, wedge shaped vessel, where This is known as a reaction chamber. And this thin film which is deposited here, this is dried with the help of an infrared radiation. So as soon as the mixture of gases that is swept on this rectangular shaped vessel, then infrared radiations are thrown with a very high intensity so as to dry this thin film. And here, the after deposition, the film may be amorphous. It is annealed. That means this film is very well cooled. That means cooling of this thin film at very low temperature is known as an annealing process. At high temperature to get desired crystallinity of the film. So this is how the YBa2Cu3O7 minus X, this ceramic superconductor, can be obtained. So here you have to just mention how copper, yttrium and barium are maintained at T1, T2 and T3, and when the proper conditions are maintained inside this heated oven, then all these gases are swept on this rectangle with the help of a carrier gas, and this film is dried and it is annealed to desired crystallinity. So this is in general how a ceramic superconductor that can be prepared on laboratory scale. So by using this particular technique, the ceramic superconductors can be prepared. So what is the structure for these ceramic superconductors? If you look at the structure is very simple. If you look the structure, then first of all we have to draw one perfect cube. Then below this cube, one more cube is kept and one more cube is there like this. So in all, we have stacked three cubes one above the other. So this is cube number 1, cube number 2 and cube number 3. In the cube that is kept at the top where barium is present at the center. Then cube number 2 which contains yttrium at the center, and cube number 3 which contains barium at the center. Here this cube contains 3 oxygen atoms. This cube contains 3 oxygen atoms and here copper atom is placed. So cube number 1 is having the composition of copper, barium and 3 oxygen atoms are there. Now come to cube number 2. Here these 2 points are occupied by oxygen atoms and this is the third point that is also occupied by oxygen atom. So this is known as here at this point copper atom is also there. So cube number 2 is Cu, Y and O3. Now cube number 3 where barium is there and at this point oxygen, another oxygen atom and third oxygen atom is there and at this point copper atom is there. So this is having CuBaO3. So if we add up CuBaO3 from cube number 1, CuYO3 from cube number 2 and CuBaO3 from cube number 3, that can form YBa2Cu3O7 minus X. Every time I am writing the composition as 7 minus X because while studying this particular structure, then inside the crystal structure, some of the lattice side they are missing of oxygen, hence I have written 7 minus X. Now, how can we explain this particular crystal structure of this ceramic superconductor? To explain the ceramic superconductor, the explanation is rather very simple because we have to compare this crystal structure with peroxide structure. Peroxide means titanium, calcium, titanium, CaTiO3. This is known as a peroxide structure. While explaining the structure for this ceramic superconductor, here the ceramic superconductor is nothing but it is having the structure comprises of 3 cubic peroxide units. These are the 3 peroxide subunits, which are stacked one above the other, giving and elongated. This forms a elongated structure. From this figure, it is evident that the lower and the upper part contains barium ions at the center of the body is known as the body-centered barium, while the smaller copper plus 2 ions which are present at the corner of these cubes. So here copper, copper and copper. And the middle cube which is having yttrium at the center of the body, that is known as the body center. So these three copper atoms, if we see the valency, then the valency of copper is found to be 2.33. While studying chemistry of copper, we have mentioned +1 valency, the +2 valency, but we did not find any valency of copper which is having fractional valency of 2.33. So this indicates whenever there is a fractional oxidation state of copper, then that indicates that the superconductivity is only because of this parameter, because copper is in 2.33 oxidation state, and because of this variable oxidation state, the material that possesses the superconducting property. Now, what are the uses or what are the applications of these superconductors? Very interesting applications are there, which I'm going to show you with the help of one video also. Here, the ceramic superconductors, first application is that they have almost zero electrical resistance. And because of this, the cables which are made up of, say for example, nowadays the aluminum cables are there. And if we coat these aluminum cables with the help of the superconducting material, then the losses during the transmission, those are greatly reduced. Secondly, because these ceramic superconductors, they produce large magnetic fields. They produce almost large magnetic fields, and hence this particular parameter that is used in super fast. This is used in super fast magnetically levitated trains, which we call as bullet trains. So this particular material that is used for the high speed of trains which are working on this particular ceramic superconducting material, which are known as the bullet trains. I am going to show the bullet trains which are running in China at a speed of 550 kilometers per hour. So very fast speed that is developed because of the magnetic field that is developed. Third, ceramic superconductors are also being diamagnetic. They are basically diamagnetic, and because of this property, these are used in medical field, that is in MRI techniques. So the ceramic superconductors, they are used as a best tool so as to detect certain diseases, those diseases which are detected with magnetic resonance imaging machinery, that is known as a MRI machine, and where these ceramic superconducting materials are used. So these superconductors are also useful in computers, satellites, and a variety of other electronic devices. So these are some important applications of these ceramic superconductors. So I would like to show you how the ceramic superconductors they work on the technique of these high-speed trains. I would like to show you one video, but to see this video, you have to wait for some time because 2014 ला मी चायनाला गेलो होतो. त्या चायनामध्ये बुलेट ट्रेन्स आहेत. तर मी शांघाय टू चायना I have traveled this bullet train. I will show you how the speed that is maintained by these bullet trains. 50 kilometers of this distance that is traveled only in 3 minutes. I will show you how the speed of the train is there. So to maintain patience, I will show you this bullet train. So around 10 to 15 days, I was in Shanghai, that is in Shanghai University, China, to attend an international conference. First of all, I would like to show you the photograph that I have taken when I was traveling through this ट्रेन हिअर संध्याकाळी 4:32 झालेले आहेत आणि ट्रेनचं स्पीड आहे 301 किलोमीटर 1 आवर. म्हणजे निप्पाणीहून मुंबईला जर जायचं असेल तर साधारण 35 मिनिटांमध्ये जाता येतं, इतका हा स्पीड आहे. सो वन मोर फोटोग्राफ इज देअर. दिस इज द फोटोग्राफ of another train where I have traveled. First of all, I will show you the bullet train, the speed of bullet train. See this. See the speed of this bullet train. I have traveled through this bullet train. The speed is almost 400 kilometers per hour. See, this is the inside of this bullet train. And my student, Sandeep Sabri from Sidna, is working in Jaisingpur College. See the speed of this bullet train, 400 kilometers. So this is a speed of, if you want to see this bullet train, this is a picture when मी ज्यावेळेला खाली उतरलो शांघाय टू पुडॉंग इंटरनॅशनल एअरपोर्ट जो आहे तिथपर्यंत या ट्रेनने गेलो होतो. दिस इज अ फ्रंट साइड ऑफ दिस बुलेट ट्रेन अँड आय विल शो यू. दिस इज पुडॉंग इंटरनॅशनल एअरपोर्ट, China. Some photographs that I will also show you when I visited China. Perhaps you might have heard Feng Shui. This is a city, Feng Shui. This is Bank of Shanghai. I have having the photograph. These are the roads. This is a taxi. Planes are also traveling very near. This is a toll plaza in China. This is a hotel where the international conference was held. Grand Mercure Hotel, Shanghai. This is myself. This is a view from the conference hotel. This is a Shanghai University campus. Very beautiful campus I visited. This is a library building of Shanghai University. Pin drop silence is there. This is Chinese cat. This is one of my friend in China, Mei Ling Xing. Some photographs are there. This is a Shanghai University Hotel, Lehuru Group, and this is a hotel room. This is a tub bath, Chinese tub bath, and this is a plane by which I have traveled, Singapore Airlines, which took place 4.5 hours to reach 6,400 kilometers from India to China. So with this ceramic superconductors, I like to conclude that in this topic, we have seen in the beginning the physical properties of metals. Secondly, we have seen the classification of metals as conductors, insulators, and semiconductors. Also, we have seen the different types of semiconductors, extrinsic and intrinsic semiconductors. And lastly, we have seen the ceramic superconductors, wherein we have studied how the ceramic superconductors they can be manufactured on laboratory scale and what are the important applications. Particularly, I have mentioned the bullet trains, high-speed bullet trains. मी असं सांगितलं तुम्हाला की मी या बुलेट ट्रेन मध्ये बसलो होतो, पण खरोखर बसायला मला मिळालं नव्हतं कारण 2 मिनिटांमध्ये 50 किलोमीटरची ट्रेन पोहोचली होती. मी फक्त शूटिंग करत होतो तेवढ्यात पुडांग इंटरनॅशनल एअरपोर्ट जे आहे ते आलेलं होतं. त्यामुळे मी बसलो नाही, फक्त उभा होतो. 2 मिनिटांमध्येच ते स्टेशन आलं. त्यामुळं ती बुलेट ट्रेन बसायचा, बुलेट ट्रेन मध्ये उभं राहायचा मला योग आला होता 2014 मध्ये. सो विथ दिस I would like to thank you all for your patience and patience listening. So from tomorrow, I am going to begin with another interesting topic of organometallic chemistry. Thank you very much.